The following is a production of the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network.
Welcome back to UFHL Now. I'm your host, Kyle Hall. And as we come up on playoff season, it was an exciting week of action this week. We saw a ton of changes in the standings. We're seeing teams that are now flying up the top 16 boards. We have two very exciting guests coming up later in the show of a team that is red hot right now, which we'll get into a little later on. Unfortunately, no Larry this week. He is taking a much needed rest after the crazy trade deadline and then the prospect ratings that he put out there. He did all 4 rounds. Make sure you go check that out at UFSsports.com. He has compiled all the prospect standings as well as his own 4-round standings. So make sure you go check that out. That was awesome. That just dropped this last week. But let's get into the standings because there's some very exciting changes here now. The Royals and Titans continue to hang there at the 1 and 2 spot. The Titans are 126 points now back of the Royals for first place. West Coast Express, the Grizzlies, and Stingrays round out the top 5 again. Then we get to the Rock Republic and Ice Vikings before we get to the changes this week with the Yetis jumping up 1 spot to number 8 and the Gators dropping down to number 9. And then pretty much the focus of today's show, the CanWest Generals, the number 10 spot. They jump 2 spots. Kamikaze drops down 2 spots to 12, and the Red Army sticking there at the number 11 spot. It's a very interesting battle between CanWest and Red Army going into a playoff series now. CanWest is now sitting right above Red Army, so they'll be going back and forth, I'm sure, through the end of the year. We'll get into that little later on with our guests, but who will get home ice there in that division is yet to see. And then further down the list, we also have changes to the Outlaws. Outlaws are now jumped up to the number 13 spot. The Battlehawks down to number 14. And then you see Bentley Jackson Stallions switching spots there of 15 and 16. So the only real playoff series that had some switching action was the CanWest Generals jumped Red Army into they're now the number 2 seed in the Gretzky division, as Red Army now fell to a 3 seed. So you'll see that here. So you see they're still number 1 with CanWest now as the number 2 seed, Red Army the 3. The Stallions are still holding on to that wild card number 2 spot. And then the Stingrays will be playing the Battlehawks and the Ice Vikings and the Yetis. This is the Allen Conference. But yeah, very exciting as we get closer and closer. Only about, I think the most the team has right now is maybe 20 games left in the season. So we are rapidly approaching. We are almost into the month of April, which is the last month of the regular season. So we are almost in the last month, the home stretch here for the regular season. Very exciting stuff. Now let's get into our who's hot and who's not this week. Now, there's a trend for the who's. A lot of forwards made the list this week, although you'll see a very familiar defenseman's name pop up in the players of the week. But it was mostly the forwards who got it done this week. First, and it's heavy hitters, too. I mean, these are real heavy hitters this week. Johnny Gaudreau, West Coast Express, leads it off this week. 30.65 fantasy points in games. 2 goals, 8 assists, and 10 points total for the Express superstar. The Flames right now look like they might be the team that can compete with the Avs in the Western Conference. So Johnny Gaudreau having a monster season. I believe he's a free agent at the end of the season as well. So huge year for him to have. And as West Coast Express goes further into the playoffs, Gaudreau might be a guy that sticks around for a few rounds, really help them out further out. Next up on our list, Matthew Tkachuk, another Flame player on this list. 28.68 fantasy points in his last 3 games. 3 goals, 5 assists, and 8 points for the Royal Star. Matthew Tkachuk, a guy, I think any team in the NHL will take him on their lineup, take them on their team. Guy fills every category, a great player to have in fantasy hockey. Can hit, score, do everything for you. A monster week for the oldest Tkachuk brother. And then next up we have Nazem Kadri, who's having a great year. The Grizzlies forward, 28 fantasy points in his last 4 games. 3 goals, 4 assists, and 7 points. The Avs star, I mean, he's had a great year for them. And like I said, the Avs and Flames see like turn a collision course for a unbelievable series in the playoffs. So I'm sure both the Grizzlies and also the Royals and West Coast Express would love to see those teams go far into the playoffs. And right now, both those teams are just red hot and playing so well. So Nazem Kadri, another very good week for the Grizzlies forward. Then we have Sidney Crosby, a guy. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they continue to hang around. The Penguins and Rangers and Hurricanes, a great battle for those three teams in the Metro. The Rangers and Penguins have been going back and forth in second and third place. Crosby had 27.13 fantasy points in the last 4 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, and 8 points for the brute superstar. I mean, Sidney Crosby, the guy, no matter how old he is, he's going to continue to get it done. Him and Ovechkin are just freaks in nature. Unbelievable player. He night in and night out, he's the best player on the ice. Not much more you can say about Sidney Crosby that most hockey fans don't know already, but the Brutes, I'm sure, love to see the production out of their superstar again this week. And then we have Leon Draisaitl. So 2 Grizzlies making the list this week. 24.82 points for the superstar in the last 4 games. 6 goals, 2 assists, and 8 points. The Grizzlies, it's a little scary here if the Oilers will make the playoffs or not. What kind of run they have. Obviously, they love to have Draisaitl along for that run. The Grizzlies are in a great playoff position right now. So I'm sure they are really rooting hard for the Edmonton Oilers these days, hoping that they have their superstar on a nice run for the playoffs for them. And then last but not least, the goaltender this week, Cam Talbot. Have yourself a week, Cam, after the Wild go out and pick up Marc-Andre Fleury. Talbot comes out in 3 games this week, puts up 24.30 fantasy points. He goes 3-0 with a 1.33 goals allowed and 9.59 save percentage for the Stingrays goaltender. An unbelievable week. Talk about a guy rising up to the pressure. I mean, you got the reigning Vezina Trophy winner get traded into the team, and you respond with that monster of a week. The Stingrays have to be absolutely loving it. It looks like Cam Talbot right now is kind of holding on to that net for dear life with this great performance that he had. Unbelievable week for Cam Talbot. Be a very interesting goalie situation going forward there in Minnesota. A team, another team expected to make a pretty solid run the playoffs as well in that Western Conference. Now let's go to who's not hot this week. First up, Tyson Barrie. A rough week for the Gators star defenseman. 1.19 fantasy points in 4 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, and a -3 rating. A very tough week for Tyson Barrie. Very tough week for the Gators to see that out of their stud defenseman. Next up, we have Vladimir Tarasenko, a name that was traded from our guests today. 1.81 fantasy points in the 2 games he played this week. He did register a goal, but a -7 rating this week. The Assassins forward. Anytime you go -7, you're going to find yourself on the who's not hot list. I can guarantee you that. So a little bit of a tough week there for the Assassins star forward. Now you have Ivan Provorov, the Flyers defenseman, the Snipers defenseman. 1.89 fantasy points in the last 4 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, a -3 for the Snipers defenseman. Not a great week. Obviously, a really tough season in Philly, kind of playing out the stretch here, but I'm sure the Snipers would love to see more production out of their defenseman here in the final month of the season. 1.89 points in 4 games, not going to get it done. Next up, we have Justin Falk, another Gators player on this list. 2.51 fantasy points in the last 4 games, 0 goals and 0 assists, a -4 plus-minus rating. Not a good week. Not a good week to be a Gators defenseman. Let me tell you, rough go there for the Gators on the D end. And then last, we have the Monarchs forward Carter Verhaeghe, 2.92 fantasy points in the last 3 games. He was held off the score sheet at a -1 rating for the week. A guy who's having a very good season for the Monarchs, a very good season in general for Florida, but a rough week this week for Carter Verhaeghe. And then we round out the list with another Carter, back-to-back Carters here on our Who's Not Hot. Carter Hart. He's been on this list a couple times this year. Again, the Flyers has kind of playing out the stretch. It's been a very rough season in Philadelphia. Carter Hart continues to have ups and downs in his game. Just 2 fantasy points in the 2 games he played this week. He went 0-2 with a 5.02 goals allowed and 8.75 save percentage for the Godfather's goaltender. Again, Carter Hart's been kind of all over the place. Be interesting to see what the Godfathers do this offseason, if they stick with him or if they look to move on from him and pick up another goaltender in the offseason going forward. Now, next up, we have our Elite Prospects Players of the Week. this week, our goaltender got a little switch around here, but our forward of the week is Johnny Gaudreau, the West Coast Express, with 30.65 fantasy points. The defenseman of the week is Roman Josi, the Crypto Knights defenseman. I believe this is his 4th week as the defenseman of the week. He is on fire right now. There was a lot of talk. Is this possible anyone to catch Cale Makar in the Norris Trophy run? And I think Roman Josi might have caught him. An unbelievable season for the Crypto Knights star. He is just putting up crazy numbers this past month. It's unbelievable to see the run that he's on. It really is crazy when you look at the numbers. So congratulations to the Crypto Knights. Another great week from Roman Josi. And then our goaltender of the week, we just touched on the Stingrays goaltender, Cam Talbot, 24.30 fantasy points. A great week for Cam, a great response to the trade of Marc-Andre Fleury coming to Minnesota, a very good team that got better at the trade deadline. So I said we have no Larry this week, so we had to come up with a good guest to fill his shoes, and I think we have 2 of them. Let's now bring in the CanWest Generals dream team, the Johnson brothers, Curtis and Chad Johnson. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
First off, I mean, great week to have you in. You guys jumped 2 spots in the standings to number 10 overall. You jump Red Army to the number 2 spots. You'll be hopefully the playoff series there. But I mean, let's talk about the success this year and how the team's feeling, how you guys are feeling about it.
Yeah, we feel good. Obviously, last year, I think we finished 22nd. So we were a bottom 10 team and, we've climbed our way up this year and made some good additions. But yeah, we feel good. And Harrison, he's not obviously on here right now, but he's a big part in the trades that we've made as well. And the vision of where we see CanWest Generals just building with the youth and our core players. So it's, our division is extremely tough. It's an exciting division to be in. You got Red Army, Battlehawks, Godfathers, Monarchs. I know they're not having a great season, but you look at their roster and they got a bunch of good young guys. And then you got, the stud GRIZZLIES. So it's been a fun year. We'll see if we can hold on to that 10th spot. I'm not holding my breath on that one, but yeah, we'll most likely see Red Army in the first round. Mooch and Jeff Ray, their crew. It's a fun little battle. I think we faced them in football as well in the first round, Mooch's team. So it's been quite the rivalry we've got going on with them.
So there's a little rivalry brewing there then. That's good. That's nice. Yeah. We like rivalries here.
We do.
Yeah, they have Igor Shesterkin, who's having a monster season, obviously, for my New York Rangers. So tough battle, the tough matchup there in the postseason with them. They have a lot of good players, but I love your lineup. We were talking beforehand. I mean, very young team. I think you guys only have 30 guys over 30, not counting Brian Little, which we might get into a little later on about his contract situation. But I guess building the team out, obviously that was a focus of staying young and getting younger, it seems like.
Yeah, I think I'll maybe jump in here. I know Curtis does a lot of the GM stuff, but I know he kind of runs a lot of this stuff, just kind of our game plan with all of our franchises. He we like to keep it young for the most part. If you look at our football, basketball, baseball, and then obviously here in hockey, I know a big discussion that I had with Curtis and just the team was trying to get rid of some of those bigger contracts, the older guys too. So Tarasenko was a big question mark. I think he came off an injury last year, so he was a talk to get moved, and he got moved. So it was just sort of a focus that we have usually on a lot of our rosters, especially in hockey here too. Trying to load up on the draft picks. Curtis loves the draft, as everybody I think can tell. Loves it.
Yeah,
I do.
Let's talk about these 4 guys. These 4 guys you picked up last year: Owen Power, Mason McTavish, Brant Clark, and Jesper Wallstedt. I mean, 4 monster prospects to have sitting right there. Hopefully, I know Chad can attest to this. I know goaltenders take a little bit longer than forwards to come to the NHL, but I mean, the 4 guys that you could possibly see making a major impact in the NHL level next year.
Yeah. I just think prospect wise in hockey, it's like it's so different than a lot of sports too. You have to sort of take those risks and try and compile as many as you can because you just don't know. Even the first rounders and Powell and Curtis has done a lot of that scouting with those type of players, so he can probably talk a little more on them too. But you do want to get as many as you can, just because you never know with development and how they fit in compared to other sports.
Yeah, I'll just kind of keep on touch on that, especially, we bought the Bombers franchise. So I know you kind of just jumped in here this past year, but we took over the Bombers franchise last year, like a week and a half before the season started. And we only had 16 roster players. And, we felt the crunch in a week and a half. We have to, ice, at least that's the minimum per game. So we reached out and we seeked trades and we pushed trades just for the short term. And I think that's, what kind of harmed us last year is we traded some good assets away, just looking the short-sightedness. And once you actually get to understand like this league, what UFF sports is and coming into it and the depth and what the values are in draft picks and ELC contracts and all those types of things, it was kind of like we had to, push the brakes a little bit, 2 months into just jumping to this platform. And we're like, okay, like we want to be a franchise that wins the regular season, right? That's the Founders Cup, I believe. And it's like, we want to win that. And how do we do that? You look at the top teams and they got, two things in common. They have guys who produce, points per game, but they play a lot of games as well. And the third thing is just ELCs, entry level contracts. And we sat back, analyzed our roster. We're like, okay, where are we to compete for that title, just like the Royals are doing this year? And we're not there yet, right? And that's where, we seek, okay, how do we get these guys on their ELCs? We need to invest some money into that to be champions. And that's why we went out and we got all those draft picks last year. We went and acquired an entire scouting agency just so we can have a mass pool of players to select from. So that was our strategy, and that's why we went and grabbed the best players available. Is Power going to be in this format a massive fantasy point producer? I don't know. He was a part of our scouting agency. He's got all the hype, but as you look at the best defensemen, they're offensive defensemen who produce the most in this league. Mm-hmm. So is he going to be that guy? I don't know. But Brant Clark, awesome player. Great. He's one of those offensive defensemen. He might take a couple years. Mason McTavish, can't speak enough of him. I love the way he plays. So we acquired even more draft. I think we have 13 draft picks in the next 2 years, 6 first rounders. So that's our vision.
You just never know how they're going to turn out. Yeah, and you just never know how these guys are going to turn out. Because it's like, are they going to come in right away and be a Cale Makar and produce, his first 2 years and be a top D-man? Like, that's everyone's goal. But you just never know what the player's like, what team he ends up on. If Cale Makar ends up on a Buffalo, does he end up like Dahlin, where, he's a below average?
Yeah.
So it kind of just depends on so many different situations and where guys are. So you kind of, you take probably as many gambles as you can on guys.
That's the whole. The regular NHL, the more lottery tickets you have, the better off you are, right? And guys you could possibly hit down the line.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a different dynamic for sure.
I would say that the core you have now that you have built as well. I mean, it's young guys. I mean, you have Clayton Keller having an outstanding season. I think he's 23. You got Demko and Net. I mean, probably now a top goalie, you might say, in the NHL this year. I mean, he's had a really good season. Patrick Laine, who I think that guy doesn't age. Like every time I look at a lineup, he's still on the age of 25 somehow. I don't understand how that's possible. Michael Bunting, I'm sure you have to be thanking your lucky stars to see what the hell he's doing this year. I mean, he's come out of nowhere. So I mean, it's a very good young core along with these great prospects coming along.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, Bunting, we wanted to bring him up last year as a part of our scouting agency, but just with the expansion draft coming in and only the amount of players that you could protect, especially those young players, it's our vision. And there's lots of great players. Hoglander's not having a good year, but he's another good player. Duclair, 26-year-old on a $3 million contract. Nico Heeshire, he's again having a breakout year as well in New Jersey, and that team's only going to get better with that young upcoming roster as well. So like Chad said earlier, we like the young players. They are gambles. It's the cap era, and it's a flat cap. So those ELCs and the gambles that we're taking on these draft picks is huge. And we'd like our goaltending, and we got Jesper Wallstedt in the wings. Hopefully he'll jump into Minnesota and be a big part in there sometime.
And you're now has Jager Furcus, who having a great year in Moose Jaw. And I've actually been following the team because Ryder Korzak, a Rangers prospect, is on that team. So every time I see a highlight, that kid is scoring goals and that part of your scouting agency. Is that obviously a guy you are now targeting with your first round pick this next coming year?
You know
Don't
what?
tell him, Curtis. You can't tip him. Don't tip it off.
Nah, I mean,
Don't let
he's
him
not.
know.
He's just he's an asset we're trying to make money off of. That's it. No, you know what? I know Furcus, so I'm buddies with his brother. I actually coached Jagger for a couple years as well. Here when he was playing Bantam or U15, they renamed it. So I know him quite well. Harris and I actually coached him, so we know the talent he has. And every year he's proved us wrong. He was tiny. He was like 5'4" the first year of U15 hockey, and I was like, is he not going to be big enough? Is he not going to be able to skate? His speed's always been an issue at every level, and his size, and he just keeps on proving us wrong. I said it like, okay, he had success in Bantam. He's going to be able to do that in midget. Proved me wrong. Same thing. Okay, he's done it in midget. He's going to be able to do it in the dub. Proved me wrong. So, he's an exciting player. If we can grab him, that'd be great. But there's definitely a lot of other players too that we're looking at.
You got some inside information on him. That's nice. That was a good answer. That was a very good political answer. Yeah, that was good. Spoken like a true general manager there. That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
In this last trade deadline, so you guys made a couple minor moves, picked up some draft capital again. Was there a bigger deal you might have been seeking out there, or was this kind of like sit back and wait and see, maybe an off-season move over there? You're just happy with your lineup going forward.
I know I'm talking a lot, but Chad, like I said, Chad, he just, I run things past him, and then Harris and I, we do
I'm
a lot
consultant.
of this. But he usually just chirps us after the fact, after we make a deal. He's like, "What are you doing?" That was a terrible deal.
So you're like the team Twitter fan. Like he gets you afterwards, right?
Oh, he does. He's that keyboard warrior. Yeah, the Troy Terry. Don't even talk to me about that one. All right. Rob Love took advantage of me. That's what I take that. Rob Love. I'm coming for you, Rob. You took advantage of me. It's I was like that. I regret that deal, but they happened. That was last year. This trade deadline, we were in the stakes in the Giordano. Obviously, with Shabbat going down this, a couple days before, we're like, hey, I don't think we're going to make a massive run. We don't want to lose any of our assets that we have. Like I said, we like to build young, but can we get a rental? And Gio came up, and I know we had some talks, and I thought we had something, I thought we had something concrete and all that type of stuff, but it just fell through last minute. And that was kind of our big trade that we're willing to do. And like I said, it fell through. We didn't need to make any. We got a draft pick, like you said, I think the Stallions, and it was just great value to get that first round draft pick for, I think it was like 200 or 180 USD from them. Plus we upgraded a second rounder. So again, we like our team. This year is not our team to win it, so we're not going to sacrifice like we did last year just to make up a few spots. Again, we're looking long term, or where we see ourselves, is not next year being pushing for champs, is the year after. Our deals are more long term than anything.
Brian Little's contract. Obviously, this last trade deadline, we saw some. In the NHL level, some moves get made that obviously impact the UFHL. And contract-wise, Brian Little got moved to Arizona for the cap ceiling. So going forward, there's been rumblings in the Telegram groups about revoting for the kind of their own IR, long-term IR in the UFHL. Is that something you'll obviously support going forward?
Yeah, 100%. I think the problem is that our rosters are built off of every single one of the 32 franchises, and those individual franchises make decisions for themselves, right? So I think it's a no-brainer in my mind that we have to come up with our own LTIR conditions that are exactly the same as the NHL, but we have the exact same cap, but we're basing it off the other teams. You look at, we had Kevin LeBanc, who's been out since December, and he's been on the IR for San Jose because they got a lot of cap room. They're like, they don't need to. They're not in a situation where they're in any cap crunch. So he's been on the IR, and that's a $4.5 million contract. You look at Shabbat now, right? Shabbat, $8 million. If we would have made that trade for Goudreau, and I didn't even think of the Little thing. I'm like, nobody's going to trade for Little. There's other guys. But we would have been, honestly screwed because, our trade deadline is the exact same time theirs is. So we hear about the Little trade. We get Gio, and we can't make a trade after the fact, because, again, we base off some of our decisions on what happens in the NHL. So, we could have lost, a good player where we'd have to send them through waivers, a Farabee or a Keyshaw or one of those guys. And I just don't think, in our league, we try and mimic as much as possible. We still can. Having that long-term injury reserve that's based off of ours, I think it just makes sense. There's lots of teams just like ours that were in that same position. Look at Duckman's if Weber, possibly, was that player going to Arizona. So I think it just makes sense. It's there's 32 owners though. They all have different opinions, but I think this one hopefully is on the common sense side of, we have our own long-term injury reserve. Side.
Seems like there's a lot of support behind. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights can't figure out in the NHL, so I mean, the fantasy league should be able to figure it out.
Yeah, you think so?
Chad, get you back involved here. Do you still follow college hockey at all? One of the greatest college hockey seasons of a goaltender of all time.
I followed a little bit. Yeah, I have some of my old coaches are down in Denver now, so I follow a little bit. But I've been busy with my kids and building a house and kind of life after hockey, so I don't stay too involved or as much as I used to. But I do follow it a little bit. So. It was obviously a great time for myself. My senior year there was pretty memorable up in Alaska. So I talked to a few of my buddies still that I played with and try and follow the good old Nanuks as much as possible. So the dynamics change a lot though since I was there. There's no CCHA and teams are all over now in different conferences. So it's a different and there's a team in Arizona I think now too, which is great. Yeah. So it's a lot different world.
How was that travel though from there as a college kid traveling from Alaska every game for away games?
Yeah, it was a battle to be honest, but it was, looking back at the experience to be on a plane and, you leave on like a Tuesday, fly all day, get in, Wednesday morning to Detroit when it's cold and windy and you jump on a bus for another 6 hours and get off the bus and try and skate somewhere in some small town just to get the legs going. At about 1:00 on a Wednesday, get in the hotel, hang out with the guys in the hotel, or go to an NHL game or American Hockey League game in like Grand Rapids or even in Detroit too. We used to stop and do that. So you kind of got a little more time to hang out. A little bit of schoolwork in there too on the road, but it was just a fun experience being able to kind of see the different parts of the U.S. Before pro hockey and play some of these big schools and on these big campuses and. Got to go out a couple nights as well. If we won both games, usually on the weekend, so we got to go to have a few drinks if we were of age, obviously. Enjoy the different campuses like Michigan State, and all these good schools. So it was fun, good experience to be able to do that, and great school and great people up there in Alaska. So I can't say enough about my experience.
You were the Hobey Baker finalist that year. I think was that Gilroy won it that year, right?
Yeah, Gilroy. Yeah, he was like 27 or something, I think, at that time.
Yeah, and you guys became teammates in the Rangers there. Any chirping there?
Oh yeah, a little bit for sure. Yeah, our first year we both played the Rangers there, and definitely some trouble. I gave him a hard time as well. Just he was an older guy. I think he redshirted for maybe a year or two, so he was like 24, 25 his senior year. So that was kind of the big talk, like, should someone that old be, or that of that age win Hobey? But I mean, he was so good that year. Like he carried that, I think it was BU at the time. He carried that BU team, I think, to a national championship. So it was pretty fun. Yeah, it was tough being to compete with those guys. I mean, he won, national championship. He had a ton of points that year and really just dominated. So he was a good guy too. I don't know where he's playing, if he's still playing or not, but it was a fun experience to be able to kind of get our first year in together. Just knowing kind of our experience with the Hobey thing. Obviously he won, but just to kind of be with another guy who went through college. it was a fun experience.
Curtis, obviously Chad had a 9-year NHL career. How much of that do you contribute to you ripping shots on the driveway growing up?
Honestly, I take full credit, right? Like his reaction time, his mental capacity to be able to deal with the ups and downs of the NHL. I take full credit for it. And we're twins, right? So we grew up at the same time. Like it's just how it is. I'm still waiting for that thank you. Maybe I'll get it today. But
I didn't see the retirement memo when he thank you to you.
I know you gave me a thank you. He did give me a thank you. So no, you know what? It was awesome to experience it. You know, we grew up playing the same teams and all that type of stuff, and watching him and being a part of it. It was special. And just talking about that Hobie Baker year, it was that year. I remember like it was yesterday how well he played. It was, you know, there were so many special moments in his career, but that year, it was lights out. He carried that team to where they're at right, or where they got to. You know, I don't think they had a great record. They were winning games like 1-0 or losing games 2-1. He had like a 9.4 save percentage. His goals against average was like 1.5 or something like that, and he had like a losing record, I think, that year as well, which is like mind blowing when you look at like Ryan Miller, right? Ryan Miller had such a great year, but his record was like 30-5 or something like that. So I just remember that year like it was yesterday. That was probably one of the most special years, me watching online, him playing. But he had great success, and seeing him put on the Calgary Flames jersey too. We're from Calgary. So that was special as well, watching him skate in the Saddle Dome for the first time. Since we were just kids, I remember going to hockey games, and we didn't go to many, but sitting there and watching Jerome McGinley and Joe Newendike and that whole, Theo Fleury and Mike Vernon. So seeing him throw that the C on his chest was special.
Now, Curtis, I was going to get into you because you have some playing history as well. You played forward though, so did you ever give up a goal that Chad maybe got on you about later on? Was there any yelling on the ice between you two?
Oh, yeah.
1 year, so I got.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I'll speak over that one. So, yeah, he got traded. So I'm going to speak on this one. So he got traded because he's probably going to be jumping. He got traded our second year in the AJHL. We were in Brooks together our first year. In the second year, he got traded. And I think it was like a month later, the Lloydminster, I think it was either Blazers or Bobcats at the time, they went to Brooks or came to Brooks. And we played against each other for the first time. I think in really competitive. We played maybe in bantam and stuff, but not really competitive, as competitive as this. So I know there was a lot of like anxiousness, at least on my side. And I think his too, just because he was coming back to Brooks and stuff. And I remember specifically a time the puck, I think it was in the corner, and he was wide open by himself, like just completely wide open. And he got the puck, and it was like a stare down. And he waited, and then pretty sure he just buried it into my pads. Didn't do anything special, but I remember that specific because I remember feeling like if this is something that we both will remember forever. And I do remember.
I don't know if I buried any pads. I'm pretty sure I beat you glove side, but went crossbar out. That's a lie. I know. Okay. I probably buried it right in your chest.
If you did score that goal, would he have ever heard the end of it?
I wouldn't have made the NHL. My confidence would have been so low. I mean, that was just one of those things you look back on and you're
that was it. The career would have ended there in Brooks.
Pretty much, yeah. It would have just ended.
Yeah. I think I took.
I have to know too. What Curtis? What did you do to get traded? You were averaging a point per game. You had 2 assists in 2 games. They shipped you out. How bad of a locker room guy were you?
That's terrible. Just a terrible locker room guy. No, it was. You know what? It was a new coach that came in, and they had a young guy coming up who kind of took my spot. I can't remember his name. Do you remember his name, Chad, who came up?
I think it was. I think I ended up rooming with him too. He like took your everything. We were living together, and I think you moved out and he moved in. It was like Ben Wright. Ben Wright. I think he was drafted in the NHL as well. He was a forward or defenseman. Ben Wright, young guy.
But anyways, they brought this young stud in. Yeah, they brought this young stud in.
We need a fighter. And
they needed a fighter, so they traded me away for like the big fighter in the league at the time who was playing for for Lloyd. And a bag of pucks probably. And I got shipped up to Lloyd and was there ever since. And that was where my career ended. Lloydminster, Alberta.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I'm very happy I asked that question. And I saw it. I was like, okay, let's see what the hell happened there with the 2 games in and get shipped out. So I'm happy I asked that question. But I guess for both of you guys going forward, so what's the mindset for this franchise going forward? How are you for the future? Obviously, we talk about all the young players you have, so it's got to be very exciting for you guys when you sit down and look at your roster and just see what the future for this franchise is.
I'll let you take this, Curtis, because you're pretty in depth with that. I think for myself, I like the youth, but he kind of just rolls everything off of me and asks about certain guys. But I think him and Harry do all the details. So I'll leave that one to you, the boss.
Yeah. You look at what we're missing to be that top end franchise. We have, I think, 7 core forwards that we're, extremely happy with. Our weakness last year was our defense, and we went out and addressed that, getting Power and Clark. We picked up Jones off of waivers, who we're extremely happy with. We got rid of Zaitsev, who was a part of the old era of the Bombers. It was kind of that last little bit that we was hanging on to. So, Harrison, myself, and Chad, we kind of are starting to feel like this is our team. It's when new people come in and take over a franchise. That's how it is. So it's like next year, I feel is like 100%. This is our team. We're going to get those young guys like Power and McTavish. They're going to come into our roster. But where we go forward is just trying to find that depth. Those last couple players who are going to produce on a nightly basis. Their fantasy points are going to be in that 2.5. They're going to be on ELC contracts. Our cap situation is good. We have, you look at our top guys. Yes, Line is going to get a nice little bump here. He might probably be a $10 million guy, but we've anticipated that. You talked about Demko being one of the best goalies. He's on a very nice cap-friendly $5 million contract. Same thing with Keller, 7.5. Like, these are great contracts that we are happy with. So it's just trying to find that depth through the draft, right? That's our vision, is getting those young players, having multiple picks, like Chad said, because you just don't know when these guys are going to be ready, or if they're going to be NHL stars, or if they're even going to play, an NHL game. So that's kind of the vision going forward, is just build through the drafts. Don't chase trades like we did year one and wait for the trades to come with us. I think, that Sagan trade that we made, we got massive value back for that. Got rid of $9.8 million on a 31-year-old guy. Got 2 first-round draft picks. We grabbed Henry. I can't even say his last name. The Buffalo D-man, 22-year-old, plus Samuel Helenius, I loved him at the World Juniors. He was just a big body. So yeah, like just build through the draft and have patience and believe in what we see in these players is the big thing.
Yeah, there's like a cycle, obviously. And there's a cycle in the NHL too. So you want to make sure you're on top of things. You're prepared for that cycle of getting rid of these big contracts and having youth come in. So I feel like you have to manage it a lot like the NHL does too. You have to think ahead. You got to prepare and look at the contracts, the future, where these guys are, their age. Because once guys get over 30, I feel like you just don't really know where they can go south pretty quick. Some of the older guys, they get their second contract or their third contract, and you just don't know. So you don't want to get stuck with that, but you want to make sure you're getting value in these young guys too. So I feel like we talk about that a lot, just trying to stay ahead and make sure that we're going to be ahead of that cycle to kind of build a team for the long run, not just for a short term run. Curtis is building a dynasty. That's what he always talks about.
Yeah. And it's that I think that Sagan and
that.
Tarasenko dynasty. I like it. It was that we talked a lot about Tarasenko and Sagan because they do have lots of value, right? Like, look what Tarasenko's doing. It's like Sagan came off, that hip injury, but it's like we don't want to, be trying to be selling these guys in 3 years where their value's down. They have these massive contracts. So we're going to lose that deal. We'd rather still get max value. And we did for Sagan, and we got Duclair and Bean back for Tarasenko. So, it's just rotating these guys through, like Chad said, at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sell high.
Yeah.
Sell high 100%. And rebuild from within.
And you got to figure out, you might have to, eat a contract or have someone eat a contract for a couple of years. You don't want to get stuck with that, so you got to get ahead of the game and move them a little earlier maybe than you want to, but you don't want to get stuck with that and miss out. So.
You guys have this little budding rivalry now with the Red Army guys. Is there a GM that you hate? Could we get some blasts on here? Is there a GM that you just don't want to deal with anymore?
Oh, I don't hate any of them. I like to pick on a few, like I think like Arnie and Brent, they're great guys and they're always a part of a community and stuff like that. So I like to egg some people on too, but no, like it's honestly hockey, being a part of all the other franchises or the sports and stuff like that. It's hockey is such a good group of ownerships. Like I can't speak highly enough, again, part of football, baseball and all that. And you got to love those guys and how much they love the sport as well. So you kind of like to go in there and throw some memes and just kind of poke the bear a little bit to see if you can get a little reaction out of them. But I can't speak enough about this hockey ownership group. It's special. It's what I hope all the other leagues. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's all in fun too, everything, right? Obviously there's a business aspect and everyone wants to win, but I think it's like everyone's doing this for the fun aspect as well. Everyone wants to see it grow and their teams do well, but I feel like, yeah, again, it's sometimes hard when you're on a chat as well that things get misunderstood, but I think everybody tries to keep it pretty light and everyone gets along for the most part.
And you guys just wrapped up the baseball draft. Congrats on that brand new franchise opening up as well. So that's exciting. And you guys are in football and basketball, right? You're in everything between the two of you.
Yeah, Chad deals with Chad's big in the football, and he's the baseball guy too. I fake it like I am, but yeah, Chad can speak on that.
He suckered me into that one. Yeah, he got me into that. I was like, I had my hands full of football. I just was like, I can't do more. I'm going to get divorced here if I have to take on more responsibility with football and then now baseball. But it's fun. I think it's so addicting. That there's times when there's so much going on with both, whether it's a trade deadline or trades opening, the draft. But it's fun. It's fun building a roster and then just seeing how guys develop. That's why we love the youth part of it too. So and then you build relationships with different GMs and. Everyone has different needs and what they want to do, whether it's they don't want youth or they want youth. So it's fun, but yeah, there's a lot on our plate, and Curtis deals with most of the stuff, though, for the most part, with all the franchises. I just wanted my hand in the football. That was the exciting part for me. There's a lot going on though for CanWest in general. They're pretty big believers in this platform, as everyone knows. With how many teams he owns.
Which CanWest franchise wins a championship first?
Oh, football for sure. We already made playoffs. So
hockey's giving the playoffs this year too.
Yeah, hockey. How about basketball? Basketball, we're in playoffs.
Yeah, It's hard to know. I feel like once you get in, I mean, I look at the football part, and I don't know if hockey's the same way, but once you're in playoffs, you just never know, right? It's you don't have like a specific team. You have a bunch of players off different teams. So if you draft well or get lucky, then you can go all the way. We looked at Legion this year. They're a strong team during the season, but just drafted really well and in some way got lucky on the players that they got, and they just accumulated more and more, and then they made that push and won the whole thing. So it's hard to really know. I think we just talk about it. We just want to make playoffs. I think that's the draw that you need to have for everyone in every league, is just try and have everyone just reach the playoffs, and then it can go either way. And that's the gamble. That's the gamble side, and the investment side is to make playoffs. And then you never know what can happen. Just like real life for the most part.
I guess there's more bragging rights down the line there now too, to see which franchise wins first. But thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We'll catch up with you again soon, and good luck the rest of the season into the playoffs, and good luck with the baseball season opening up too now.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What a great interview. Thank you so much to Johnson Brothers for coming on, and best of luck to the CanWest Fantasy franchise operation there. They're in every single league, so awesome to have them involved in UFS Sports. Two awesome guys, so cannot thank them enough for taking the time to come on and fill in Larry's shoes. Larry better watch out, because they might take his job pretty soon. That was a great interview, but cannot thank them enough. And thank you for joining us this week. Like I said earlier, we're almost next show will be April, will be the final month of the season for the hockey regular season. So it's all coming down, all coming to a close here very quickly. And our guests in CanWest, I mean, they jumped up 2 spots and they're now jumping Red Army. It's going back and forth. These teams are trading spots daily. So very exciting stuff going forward. And Can's enough for joining us this week. And we'll see you next week.